Let's just round up the day's action and start off with Navneet, who joins us with all the index movers and the moves on the index as well. Navneet.
Neeraj, not a great start to this week. We were seeing a bit of correction in last week also, but the markets were seeing a bit of recovery in the second half of the session, but that was clearly not the case today. Look at Nifty closing below the 10,300 mark, rather below the 10,250 mark as well. Sensex also saw cuts of almost 280 points coming about, and Bank Nifty was a bit of resilient, but it's succumbed to the selling pressure, finally closing above the 25,200 mark, which most of the analysts have been looking at. But in terms of broader markets, the Nifty 500 fell almost 73 points. The BSE small cap index today saw cuts of almost 0.4%, and the Nifty mid cap free float index also saw cuts of nearly 100 points coming about in today's trade. Let's see which were the constituents among the Sensex which gained or rather lost. Clearly you can see more of red in today's session. Let me start off with the greens. TCS was your top gainer, up almost 2%. Remember, that's also a heavy weight on the index. Sun Pharma holding about, M&M, Kotak Mahindra, NTPC were a handful of gainers, but the losing list is pretty large. Adani Ports reacted negatively to its numbers, were not so good actually. That was down 4.5%. You also had stocks like ONGC, even Coal India reacted to its earnings which came during the weekend. Heavyweight HDFC, L&T were down and about. The private banks were also down from the likes of ICICI as well as Axis Bank. HUL, which opened in the green, touched its record high levels, also succumbed to selling pressure, so that was down 1%. And the biggies, Reliance Industry as well as ITC, Pradeep, fell almost 1%.
If you look at it, Nifty in fact completed the century in last half an hour or so, and we have tried to figure out where exactly the selling came in. First of all, I think telecom, look at Bharti Infra and Idea Cellular. These were two stocks that fell the most among large cap or the higher mid cap stocks. Actually, if you look at it, the other pocket that one can easily spot is that of infrastructure power. So you had KEC, Sadbhav, Ashoka Buildcon. These were a few stocks that corrected quite a bit in last half an hour of trade, and here is that list now. Among the more liquid stocks, we had HDIL that fell in last half an hour of trade, and we also talked about it with our experts. If you look at the small cap segment, key losers would include DCW. Now this is stock which doesn't really give you very high volume, is not very liquid generally, but in today's trade it fell quite a bit in last hour of trade. Looks like there was a big supply, and Marksans Pharma was another stock that fell in last half an hour. So these were some of the losers. Few gainers also were there actually. Look at JBF or Just Dial, maybe the stock that moved up against the market in last half an hour to an hour of trade.
Yeah, so on sum and substance, it was a weak day of trade, and no surprise that the heat map would have a tick of red. Actually, just look at the contributors, and yeah, HDFC, think of it actually, HDFC Bank was amongst the top losers at contributors at 2, and then the extent of fall that we would have seen in L&T, Reliance and ITC, that all of these three overtook HDFC Bank to become amongst the top losers, because I don't think HDFC Bank gained. So it's just the extent of cuts that came into some of these heavyweights, as a result of which the market cracking 112 odd points. So a poor day of trade. The heat map will show you, the market breadth will show you that the losses would have only widened. Firstly, the heat map, and a lot of red. It was filled with a bit of red, and the green has the top gainer, which is TCS, just about 1.5%. I just want to bring up what the market breadth look like, and I reckon that the advanced decline ratio would have widened in favor of the declines. And yes, indeed, if you look at this gap in the last maybe half an hour of trade, it really widened to end almost 2:1 in favor of the declines. So not a happy hunting ground here, and at least in today's session for the bulls. Let's see if there is more pain in store in tomorrow's session or no. It fell on fairly muted turnover on the FNO side, I must say though. The turnover is nowhere close to what we do on a daily basis, so let's wait and watch. The numbers today could be very, very interesting as well. And just one last thing, I mean, just look at what's really gone up the most or gone down the most, and the picture is clear that Adani Ports, Aurobindo and ONGC were amongst the top losers, and amongst the top volume contributors, M&M, which gained a bit, but then it's all the losers. Larsen, Aurobindo and HDFC were amongst the biggest losers, and they were the ones that fell with the highest volumes on the cash side as well. So that speaks about the weakness in trade today. Anyways, final thoughts from our experts. And Dharmesh, before we thank you, just a word. I know you mentioned sometime that at the start of the show that you would probably look to initiate longs into select names, but would you wait for a bit? Does this weakness make you believe that there could be more downside?
See, markets are given to extremes. So I think this downside which has started, and now the way today the market has corrected, so it would be prudent to wait for some time. Maybe a staggered approach of buying can be advised, and maybe 30% kind of allocation when the market opens tomorrow, and thereafter you take it forward as the market behaves. Though my own sense is this November entire month would be volatile with a range bound kind of an activity, more of a profit taking happening into play rather than buying activity coming into the play. So you will get more opportunities to place your investment bets. So better to be wait and deploy your money in a systematic manner, in a staggered approach.
Jay, would you take fresh longs if there's a gap down opening tomorrow?
Well, Navneet, as expected, 10,200 is holding, and till those levels are not broken, I think, going longs or holding longs doesn't really would be a problem for the bulls. For the short term, at least, they can expect a bounce, as I said, till 10,300. But if it opens below 10,200, sustains for an hour or so, then I think it's a point of worry. Then I think, the stop loss seems to have, triggered for the short term traders at least. Although one can wait for the entire day to close to check whether, it closes below 10,200 or not. But then the initial hour is generally the rudder of the day. And if we see a closing below those levels, and if it's not able to come back about 10,200, if we see a gap down, then I think one should exit. But I would still doubt that could happen after a sharp sell-off which has been seen today. But however, I think that till 10,200 levels are holding, I would in fact suggest to go long only.
I mean, what are you doing in the near term? And is there a bet that you can make for the medium term in a weakness like this, or you'll probably just identify the pockets and maybe buy them once the valuations or once the market correction seems to be over?
I think yes and no. I think I like cap goods, especially L&T. It's posted a fresh all-time high. We've seen a 6 months consolidation. We've technically almost seen a breakout, and we fizzled out after good numbers. So I'm not sure how that works out, but technically still seems fine. The BSE IT index is turning from a longer term point of view, so I'd probably look at something over there, but it's not a short term call. And tomorrow, like Navneet was saying, if there's a gap down opening, I'd stick my neck out and say I'd buy HDFC.
Buy HDFC if there's a gap down opening. Okay, keep in mind, HDFC's been amongst the top contributors on the losing side a number of days in the recent past. Let's wait and watch if there is more in store for that one or no. But for now, just take a bit of a short break. Thank all our guests for joining us on the show today and giving us your thought. Dharmesh Khan, Jay Thakkar, as well as Hemant Kapadia. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today and giving us your thoughts.